How about now? That probably should be working now. All right. That's unfortunate. Anyways, whether you guys had missed a whole lot, I basically said, hi, welcome to Star Wars Ashes episode 19, the road to the end of season 1. Summarizing episode 18, crew chatted with Kato about what the fuck happened on episode 18, why things had been so bad, what was happening. That was a bulk of the first half of the session, as everyone tried to basically lean in on them. They figured out what their next step was, and obviously Kato has some owning up to do, especially with the Zeke. Which what Nard and Mason ended up going having a talk with her, or no, it was Nard and no, I think everyone had a talk with her. Yeah, it was like Mason, Nard, and then eventually Kato. Kato trying to repair the relationship and revealing that they were getting her slave friends free for her, which she was ecstatic about, but also kind of equally panicked. Um, didn't really fully recognize or thank Kato, but that was the situation's complicated. Kato started to get some new salvaging supplies for going back to Nar Kaaga because they want to still try to grab some extra dough while they're out there. Heard a bunch of rumors about how, with the Empire's arrival to Nar at the end there, that caused a whole lot of madness. That it actually ended up being a lot worse than that because that Victory class Star Destroyer was then accompanied by other ships. It turned into a small strike force, and that did substantial damage to Narhaska before the Hutts managed to arrive and push them off. And now, because of all that, combined with some other events that we had seen with the attack on Starbase Neon, and even the unseen battle that the group now wants to salvage outside Nar Kaaga, the Hutts are now making a bold statement that they're not going to be bullied and basically handle these attacks by the Empire, and that they are going to get into a combative stance and they're going to bring the fight back. And if the Republic gets in the way, they'll deal with the Republic as well. So that has caused some drastic ripples, which Cato then also saw as a symptom with the like a mercenary bounty-ish combo board basically being empty. Like basically everyone's just hiring them up and getting stuff done now that things are going crazy, and that there's either one, no time to hold off on other jobs because now everything's become time sensitive, or it's a great chance for everyone to start building their rep going into hiring season for the Hutts, or the earn favor for the Hutts, or whatever. Then the crew left. They brought the Pudu and the Remembrance, and they went and returned back to Nar Kaaga with a good I think it was another week travel. I think that's when Kato and the Sikh had their chat, and it was the reveal, and it was still kind of awkward. They get to Nar Kaaga, they get to the debris field, they maneuver around. Mason looks for something very high prized. He goes for the big roll and succeeds. He manages to find an intact piece of a Moncal Star Cruiser with what should be some reasonably salvageable turbo lasers, or at least at least one, but we never really specified if it was only one or not. The problem is, because he had, I think, rolled some threat on, is that he saw the like searchlights of another vessel, because those create more of a noticeable effect than specifically seeing the ship itself. They couldn't really determine much from a range. They tried to, and then they eventually just go, okay, we'll just communicate with it, because we have to get closer and risk being shot at if they're bad people. So screw it, this is the open comms. And they're greeted by the Kessel jockeys, people that they had run into back during the kind of underhanded droid selling deal in the Roche asteroid belt. When the Republic was looking for underworld people to basically smuggle droids into Hutt territory that cause a ruckus. So they were on. They were the potential allies. They weren't necessarily enemies or allies. Although Kato was still pretty enthusiastic for meeting them, tried to have a chat. The Kazakis were a little adverse to the fact that they had been basically left out the left into the gunfight without any help, and they brought that up a couple times about how they're kind of bitter about that. But with some Kato being Kato and being a savvy business person, manages to secure a deal and decides to, in fact, go quite big he decided to purchase the turbo laser at 22,000 credits, which is basically over its price brand new on its own. And the castle jockeys took it, and they managed to acquire a turbo laser, and that was more or less where we had left off, because without any confrontation there wasn't really anything left to talk about. There is something I just wanted to quickly check, because I did forget to do that before. I wanted to see. Oh yeah, okay. I was making sure they even had that as their equipment on the ship. I forgot to check that before. But yes, they do in fact have heavy turbo lasers. So we cut in with the Remembrance in the Poodoo. Um, we'll say zooming towards Nar Kaaga. Not really like, I don't think you guys would have had a jump because it was in system. So if I would have just been a little bit of a sublight coast. Your Laputo now is pretty well crammed full of a Mon Cal turbo laser, pretty much to the brim. It's quite a bulky single piece of equipment, especially with all the fixings and stuff that you probably kept mostly attached to it and didn't try to like take anything segmented apart or anything like that. So you're basically one big giant piece of turbo laser that's storing up the container part of the ship, and you get within the general area of the planet for Nar Kaaga. It's got some reasonable traffic. You guys aren't. It's not necessarily easy going, but there's no like open hostility. Like as you get closer to the general airspace or airspace. So, I don't know quite how that works. General air, proximity of the planet. There is a lot of suspicion. Like you guys are scanned like numerous times by various like mercenary ships and bounty hunters and whatnot, like kind of checking to make sure that nothing's really gonna happen. No one like opens fire. There's no anything, but there's definitely a lot of everyone's on edge basically, and you get that feeling as you kind of are gradually kind of bringing yourselves through towards the planet. What is the first thing you guys are looking to do? You punch in the comlink number and takes a few seconds, takes a few more seconds, and then it's picked up. And the first thing you hear out of it before like a voice comes in is the sound of blaster fire. And then finally the voice comes in, uh hello? Who's calling at this rather inopportune time? Mr. Spectre. I what an interesting moment that you want to have a chat. I'm under fire from a lot of gangs. We've had to move from the chapel in the swamp. A warehouse on the side of the coast. Nar Kaaga. If you're in the area, I would certainly appreciate the aid. Otherwise, I don't have much time to chat. Oh, uh, for the moment, yes, they're all right. And the comm cuts off for a moment. Probably takes like a couple minutes. Like there's that painful pause of like, um, is it happening? And then finally, like the digits come through, and because Nar Kaaga is not a city world, but it's got a very large metropolis that just basically takes up a bunch of the planet to refresh everyone's memory. And sure enough, obviously that's going to run along. It's mostly on like it pretty much takes up like a continent on this planet, so it's got basically like coast on either side of the city, and on one of the side, probably say we'll say the east coast of this large city that occupies Nar Kaaga, there's the marker for where his location is. Um, so there is a like a you could. So there's an orbitable platform. It's like basically like a mini starbase. Just basically a bunch of like uh, a bunch of corridors that just allow connections for ships to feed in, and then usually from like somewhere around the core of this orbital platform, there's some either like some way of getting to the surface. Some planets actually have like a space elevator or just like shuttles, basically planetary shuttles, and they can leave the ships up here, especially when they're like big capital corvettes and above type of ships, like big boys. Um, so there is one of those. The problem is the spots are all taken. It's busy around here, as mentioned earlier. So that would be your hurdle. Okay. One opens up. Maybe you you throw a common maybe at the right time. Somehow like got bumped into ahead of a reservation or something like that, or something like that, and you manage to get that little bit of bump favor. Some or actually even better, it's probably like you are well wishers with someone who manages the orbital platform, and that's how you met Haral. That's how he came into creation, was you knew a guy. Nah, maybe I don't know if it's sooner. You can think up one. I don't know if we'll really get to it. But you knew a guy. You called in. You got called in a reasonable favor and got some quick VIP treatment. You managed to do a swap and get people over from um, with the one dot. Get people over from the Pudu to the Remembrance, and you guys can be on your way. Put the name into Star Wars? Because I got Haral wrong before. Oh, Appa. Okay, sure, sure. The more you know. All right. Any other major or major minor things we need to see or do here, or do we just have you guys reunite on the Remembrance? Right. Oh yeah. Yep. Your new gloves. Um. I know you put it into one of the chats. I just don't remember which one. Was it general or roll 20? Ah, yeah. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So you get those. Lizik obviously hops out of the pilot chair when Mason comes through the cockpit. She kind of does the over elaborate gesture of the kind of to the chair for you. No problem. Okay. So how fast do you descend to the marker point? All right. Give Nah, I don't think so. If you want to flavor it, you can. I don't think a roll is necessary. I'm saving that for Mason. Okay. So yeah, since you're coming in hot, let's see a piloting planetary for 4 purple. Oh, sorry, 3 purple and a red. Let's see how hot you come in. All right, Mason's still styling. He still knows his shit. For everyone to see the roll. Um, yeah. So we get this moment. I mean, if you wanna narrate the moment of cool here as you just nose into the fucking planet. Sure. We'll see. We'll say you take the strain for the threat. Um, so yeah, I think we get this. We get end up getting this. Sorry, what was the 2 strain? Was that for the castle jockey thing, or was that before that? We'll give you the guys the benefit of the doubt and say it was beforehand, and you can have it cleared. So Mason should just have the one now, because I can't say either way. So we'll just kind of say screw it. Um, so yeah, we get this view, oceanside view of this giant metropolis, mega city, and the ocean front is pretty much as you would see for a lot of cities of the side. It's very much full of docks, warehouses, um, and cranes and um, constant water traffic. So there's like container ships and all that type of stuff that you'll see a lot. And supply vehicles, some space vessels that have the luxury of being also very operable in water will sometimes come in and basically act as a naval ship, so they can have some other way to find space to land and set up, so they don't have to use a space dock since they're not limited to it. So you'll see some relatively larger ships that will come in and kind of basically beach, sort of, along the coast. And there's a fairly reasonable, a fairly large size warehouse that we kind of the camera kind of gets a view of, and it even has like a single canal that feeds into the warehouse where a naval vessel could fit in. And we see from the distance, from a bit of a sky angle, just like the constant streak of like red and blue blaster fire going back and forth, and there seems to be like peppering between inside and outside. And there's even like, we even get the sample of like SUV style, like armored hover speeder vehicles that are just spraying fire down into, in towards the warehouse on along the outside, like in like, basically like almost uh not fully militarized formation, because these are, probably just gangs, but there's fairly organized. They're not slouches either, right? Like they're, get vehicles kind of wedged together in a dome, and then a couple another line up in another line. Like they have them staggered out and whatnot. And we get this like speck of red and black coming from the sky, zooming in at an incredible speed, and the camera zooms in. It's the Remembrance coming in hot, like the ship is kind of shaking. It's got the atmosphere burning up around it, like it's debris, or like a space shuttle coming in from a landing on the from the space station visit or something. Like you were just rocketing through, like you didn't even care about the atmosphere or anything. You were like, I don't care if this thing tries to skip me off the planet, we're getting down. And you're just soaring through down to it before kind of like managing the curve up a little bit, and you kind of like skim along the cross of the warehouse by just a few hairs before like swinging around. And you guys all in the, like, if you're anybody who's in the cockpit, you get a good breadth of view of the battle and madness that is this marked location that you had been given by Hood. All right. Give me the gunnery attack roll. We'll say A. All right. Yeah. Wasn't gonna be 4 purple. No. Yeah, but the difficulty is the range, and you're for a ship weapon, you're not that far. But I was gonna do 2 purple. You would have just had an advantage, and that's it. If you get rid of the other 2 purple die, so you have one advantage. Any, yeah. Oh, you for don't miss. The most helpful assist ever. Don't miss. Okay, there. Now it's a straight failure. So yeah, you straight through. You're peppering shots out of the ship's. Oh, what is it again? Is it just like a dual laser? Let's bring up the remembrance here. Character sheet for its weapon. Dorsal dorsal turret mounted light laser cannon. Yeah, so like a little single shooter type of thing. And uh maybe it's because, sure, yeah, we see the remembrance come through for a strafe. Mason has to pitch the ship base because the turret's dorsal, so it's on the top of your ship. So you have to like basically like flip her upside down basically as you're making the pass, just to get the shots to go through onto the ground. But they just slam into the ground. A bunch of the uh, dirt and asphalt just kind of get torn up as you're spraying the shots through. You maybe like smash through some fences and whatnot that was kind of along the outskirts of this warehouse. And you don't really connect with any of the buildings, or sorry, any of the vehicles. Maybe one of them, but it just seems to get soaked completely by its hull, and doesn't seem to, like, just shakes it off as if it wasn't even hit in the first place. But obviously you announced your present, and it seems like you came. It does have that kind of heroic moment where everyone kind of like the gangs were kind of creeping forward. They have the leverage, and then you came in and sprayed fire down, and they scatter. And they don't have this like organized formation anymore. And like their side of the blast of fire kind of pauses for a moment as everyone looks for and takes cover from now an aerial opponent that has entered the fray. Yeah, we haven't referred to it in ever. No, we haven't. And yep. So the what I guess yeah, anything Kato I think does next. We'll give you a chance as we kind of do a loose round of turns. Because he had to turn the ship upside down, so he was joking that you fall on your head. It'd be coordination, but yeah, sure. You only have the one. Okay. Um, if it was during the strafing, well, kind of would be probably just after because Mason would have been occupied with the strafe run, so it's kind of hard to pass over. And for, yeah, yeah. So yeah, you because a couple things are going to happen here pretty quick. So I'm going to make sure to understand that these are going to be some very narrow timings on things. But yeah, you got to come through to Hood, and again, kind of the same thing that Mason heard. You're greeted with the sound of blaster fire, and then that familiar buzzing, swishing sound that you heard when you ran into Scazia in between some of the blaster fire. Before you get the kind of the hello, Mason. As I do seem to recall, the business fellow. I'm not quite sure there's something big enough for the remembrance. It's kind of why we chose this location in the first place. Depending on how good the pilot is, there's probably plenty of those. And as if on cue, Mason, your console lights up with the fact that the rear ramp is already like turned on, is like coming down. and and then you kind of get the static that comes through the comm as a voice comes through, and you hear, "Just get me close. I'm going to jump out." Yeah, we don't have time. We got to help them. Of course. Yep. Yeah. Yep. As you get to the back ramp, the door is open, the air is whooshing rapidly. It's like really hard to like communicate with Zeke's kind of like holding on to like a one of those like grip things kind of in the ceiling sort of, as like the air is just like, making it difficult to kind of move around in the back parts of the ship there. Yeah, she's hefting her rifle. She's in her fitted stormtrooper armor thing, a laminate armor. How far off into the water do you drop, just so I'm not misdepicting things? So so the the ocean side of this warehouse, there is kind of still the parts of like cement foundation that come out. That's kind of where people can move and walk on, in between where the gap is for the ship that can go on the inside under the warehouse. So there is that kind of that space there that's, and it's on what you seem to be able to determine is on the hood side of the battle. So you do have some room to make kind of a quick, relatively quickest drop there, hot drop. Or you can just throw the Nautilus into the water and see if he swims. It's all. Well, we'll settle this by a roll then. We'll say Mason tries to aim for the dock thing, um, and goes towards it as an aim. Lasik doesn't really wait for the ship to stop. She just seems to measure when there's a reasonable like distance, safe distance to even do it, and then just runs down the ramp and just goes for it. And yeah, basically the Anakin looking at Padme as she got knocked into the sand dune in episode 2. Yeah, yeah. And then do you follow after Gato? Kind of pause and then, all right. Well, I was gonna give you a chance to fail and then go into the water and then swim, but okay, you're fine if you didn't want. No, no, I was gonna put it on you guys. It's kind of a how do you well do you aim your landing? Yeah, athletics, and I'll run one. No, because I think Mason can get a reasonable pass and slow and low angle on it, so just two purple. Um, okay. Just two purple. All right. So yeah, we see Lasik kind of somewhat recklessly go for the run and jump out when the ship gets within, maybe like a meter or so height off the dock. Basically, Mason pulling some fast, like coming to almost a stop trick as he manages to get reasonable position. She jumped a little early, missed the dock by a bit, and you just hear the splash of water from her. Kato, you paused a little bit longer, not so recklessly, and to your benefit, you managed to you see the pavement or the concrete a lot more clearer and whatnot, and you run and you kind of do a Duracrete, yeah, and you manage to get your run and kind of like leap off, and kind of maybe do like a quick tuck and roll type of thing as you land, and again, baby's one strain. It's a little bit of a rough task, but you managed to do it quite well without any real hindrances or issues. And then I'm assuming Mason just soon's like maybe if you calm or something like that, or he just gives a few seconds and then gets the remembrance going again and get back to some speed. No, we won't say in this particular case you were positioning more for the drop. Here we go. Yeah, it took a moment to kick in. It was a weird part, but yeah, that's fine. All right, so you do another strafing run. I think in this case we'll see the piloting planetary and see how well you position against potential incoming issues. But you're piloting in planet. Yeah, but you're piloting in a planet. Okay. Uh, two purple. I mean, they're stationary things on the ground. I don't think there's really too much to. I mean, it depends if you're trying to look for anything more specific than just a general decent strafing run for Nard. If you're trying to find maybe like a much more advantageous position of some type, maybe like shooting in the back of like some sort of like leader type or something like that, then we up the difficulty. But it kind of, I think just a generic one is just too purple. Yeah. Um, but they're bigger targets, so no, because I think it kind of net zeros. Oh, super easy. Yeah, four successes and a triumph. So, like the repulsor lift of the engines. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I think we see the remembrance as for this environment is quite large. As a ship on its own, it's quite small and compact compared to space vessels. But again, on the streets here, this is still quite a large ship. But you just throw caution to the wind and you just bring her in. You're like almost scuffing the paint on the roadway as you're like bringing her in, and you do maybe like a I don't think you could do like some sort of like 180 with the ship. That's probably a little overzealous. But maybe as you come by, yeah, you swoop by the backside of them or something. And then as you do, maybe you do a quick kick up with the ship, and then you burst the rear engines out on the ground, so it just creates this massive surge of force, and it just throws one of these armored SUV speeder vehicles just up and up over and just smashes on its lid, and it's like twin little turret placement just gets you know covered up by a truck. Yep. Yep. One purple, you're really close range. And yeah, you spray shots in it. You just like pepper the shots into the side of the vehicle, and you get that typical Star Wars kind of like pause, and then as it kind of like just implodes from in a nice fireball of wreckage. More of the gang members and stuff seem to be like scattering. Some of them are even like they're now like spreading out further. Some are even running back towards the actual like main streets or more towards the inner level of warehouses that aren't dockside. So you've got them really kind of in a fucked up position as far as this side of things. Yeah, Kate. No, go ahead. And yeah, Kate. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, Kato, you get up from your tuck and roll, and you look around and kind of like a dock warehouse. If you're the one that mostly comes to mind for some reason, I don't know even why. It's just maybe because I'm just spent way too much time playing this game a while ago, and there was a lot of missions that took place there. But I imagine like the ones in GTA 5, that's pretty much standard imagery of what the idea of this is. A pretty kind of normal um like warehouse that's has the water dock in the middle of it, and there's like, up above, like probably like a flight of stairs that kind of crisscross up, is like kind of where they like command, like a supervisor operational staff would do things, kind of like a central booth type of thing. um and yeah, there's you can get a sense of some silhouettes and stuff up there, but there's a lot of like blaster fire and stuff that's going on in the warehouse, and there's like, you know there's like a dozen or so, a couple dozen of gang members inside the warehouse that are splashing fire as much as they can inside, targeted at just like just a few people inside here that are behind like boxes and crates and other obstructions for cover. And sure enough, kind of maybe near the like an archway of its main entrance on the opposite side of you, you see, a brown robed figure with a blue laser sword in his hands, deflecting shots, blaster shots off of it in the middle of the air, and just shooting them up into, reflecting them up in the air. Sometimes they get shot back out the main entrance, and he's just like stalwarting this entranceway while there's some like allies or something of his that are kind of shooting through him and not through him, but past him towards those people in the main entrance. Into your, sorry. I initially, when you said it just now, I was like, no, because I know you didn't look that hard. You wouldn't give you gave him no real tension because he was already distracting you with other conversation. But I do kind of remember something that I mentioned about a hilt or a cylindrical object that he had on his waist at one point, but it was like a passing mention. Scazia, yeah. Although hers was red. It may not the Kato, but just to make sure if I hadn't said it well enough before or whatever. You know, yeah. Okay, it's gonna take a bit because your holdout is, I believe, short range, and this is quite a large warehouse. You're gonna have to cover distance to be within short range. Frantically trying to be. Okay. Yep. And well, if you want it to be for the effect of like extra people being here and having um potentially a kind of like a hindrance or whatever on the enemy, you could roll it as a coercion because you're not trying to hit anybody, you're trying to announce your presence in an intimidating fashion. So I have a coin. No, I have a bottle. Well, bottle caps are worth something in the Fallout universe, so they must be worth something here. Okay. It will be hard, a bit hard. So three purple, especially because of your range. Wow. Okay. Success in a couple threats. um, you're shooting frantically. You're like running up as fast as you can. Yeah. This non. Um, and I think a couple of oh wow, that's your Wookiee. That's it. Well, you got to combine them. That's where that's where the ultimate cringe is doing them together. So you're shooting frantically and whatnot, trying to like maybe show your presence and trying to maybe give them some moment of pause, and it kind of does. The extra fire that comes in. Maybe the gang members aren't because they're kind of gradually making headway. But there's probably maybe that like again another moment of like hesitation as now there's another entity here, but it's weirdly anticlimactic because you trip and stumble off of like a metal bar that was on the floor because you were so frantically shooting at what was ahead of you. You weren't really looking at where you were walking, and you kind of do this, and then you kind of like come to a bit of a skid, maybe behind some crates or like a container or something. But you kind of lose a little bit of your momentum. You're gonna have to get back up to finish getting because you're probably still at like maybe barely medium range from extreme range type of thing. Uh, Meanwhile, we see an image of the water next to the dock, bubbling and whatnot for a moment before we see the white laminate armor kind of gradually push its way to the surface and Lasik kind of poke out of the water with a inhale of air. Oh, woo! That was exhilarating. And he grabs the. It's probably like a metal ladder to get up nearby, and she like brings her other hand up that's got her rifle, and she like tries to shake the water out of it and whatnot, and is uh making her way up the ladder for a little bit from her sudden dunk, and yeah, and then I think I don't know if they would have had this. Hmm. Oh, well, they still would have had the vehicle. So yeah, I think the gang members will start trying to take some shots at the ship. Bit of a hard shot. They're going to try and pepper some shots with their turrets, which will still have to roll pretty high to actually hit or do any actual damage, but they miss anyways. So a bunch of the trucks turn their little turrets on the top and start firing, blaster bolts into the air. as a remembrance is kind of swooping around, but none of them are connecting. You maybe see a couple of them whiz by your cockpit as you're flying by. They tried to like lead the shot, but gave it too much lead, so it just was, just kind of whizzed in front. And back to Mason, basically. All right, sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty difficult to try to get a sense of a leader from flying. So I say that's probably like four purple. You do. Yeah, you manage to spot maybe like some group huddled behind maybe like a smaller, yeah, like almost like one of those like trailer offices that you'll see at construction sites that they'll have set up, those like temporary things that they can kind of move in and then move out on a truck type thing. And you see like a fairly big cluster of people assaulting this warehouse there, with someone making a lot of like hand gestures and whatnot. Maybe that's what tips them off. You see like all the, kind of arms moving up and whatnot, and that's what kind of points out all the silhouettes behind this position. That's like, um it's probably like medium range from the entrance of the warehouse, basically. So it's like in that forward position, away from the trucks a little bit, and that's how you manage to spot them. The problem is, um, you hit a crane while you're looking because you're focused on them instead of on your flying. So the ship kind of like you hit that, you hear as you like smash metal against metal, and the ship kind of wobbles and whatnot, and it's gonna make Nard's next shot pretty difficult, or add a lot of extra difficulty to it. So it will be still your, well, this one's probably back to two purple because you're probably not like skimming the road close range. Um, but it's gonna be a couple black die for all the extra turbulence. Do it. He's he still sprays fire. Yeah, you zero down on where the leader is, and you just let that little light mounted turret, little light laser cannon. That's basically not like the weakest thing of ship weapons, but in against people is just obliterating. And you just like get like a perfect path of just like a line of thing, and it just right through the formation. I'd say you see a spray of blood, but I don't think the lasers would even leave that because it's hot energy where it would just pierce and cauterize instantly type of thing. So you don't even really get that luxury or imagery out of anything, unfortunately. But yeah, you just like pierce it through the formation, and it just like a bunch of them just crumple to the ground as you pass over them from the spray of fire. You probably aren't close enough to tell, but yeah, there's probably some substantial health. They're probably not in good health anymore. Fair. We'll do a cut back to Kato. What's your next step? Literally or figuratively. Um Not a proper detailed map. I'm just trying to think of where I want to draw. Don't draw on the slum thing. I'll just create a whiteboard. Baddies. So, draw a shape. Basically a building. This might not be the scale, but we'll have to kind of make it work. Oops. Actually, I guess I'd extend all the way up to here. Oh. And so where is Kato Swamp Token? You'd be roughly about there. So you got dropped off here. We'll see climbing up a ladder about here. The blue is the water, where leads into the interior, which you are now under. And this is the gray thing up here is the entrance, like where Hood and a lot of the gangs have been kind of pushing in that direction. Does that make sense? But the scale would be probably significant, a bit larger, probably like a good 2 or 3 times larger. But it's the idea of them. Yeah, they're on the other side of that. Okay. Gonna watch your feet this time. All right. We'll bring everyone back to this then, since we don't need. All right. That's fair. Anything else? Yeah, I guess most of it will be spent just moving, and you pretty much can get up to Hood's position. You spend all your movement to get here, because you'd have to probably take like double set of movement, like the extra maneuver, unless you have a different way of getting an extra maneuver instead to keep your action. I think Mason does. I don't think you do. Oh no, it's Nard. Nard has the extra arms, which gives him an extra maneuver. That's right. Nard has the freebie. Yeah, right. True. You could take. That's right. I forgot. You could take the 2 stress for a second maneuver and then still have your action. So you could do it that way and take up stress and get a little bit more. Okay. So you do that, and then instead you push your body to make that maneuver, and now you could probably take a shot now, yeah, if you want. Well, one. What do you mean? Oh, it would have been just one purple. I don't know why you put so many there. Roll it again. One purple. There we go. That's pretty much what you would have gotten last time. Um, you rolled your, except for you rolled your gauntlets. We'll still keep it, but you changed your weapon. You Yeah, you changed weapons. So three successes on 5 damage is 8. No, it's the same roll. It's clearly the same roll. So you do 8 damage minus their soak. So yeah, you skiff one of them pretty good. They're still mostly standing and kind of gradually creeping, sort of not really creeping forward. Now you're kind of up there near Hood and showing the extra numbers. They're holding position, but maybe a couple of them looked back and saw the wreckage of that trailer, portable trailer thing that now is just has bodies kind of crumple kind of fall off to the side of it, basically from their like command cover, that's now just a mess. So you kind of have them a little bit kind of pinched in a very indirect sense because of things. Lissy we see her climbing out of the not we was going to say car. We've already seen her climb out of the water, so she got up the ladder. She reached the Duracrete area of the dock just outside the warehouse by near where you had actually successfully landed, and she's more or less making her way towards you, but she's still back like long range from you basically. And yeah, we can come back to Mason. Oh, actually, the trucks would take another pot shot, right? That I had earlier. So their weapons would have been personal. They wouldn't be ship scale. So make the ship take one. Oh, what is its actually? What is its What is the remembrance armor? That's the word I was looking for. A whole 1 hour. So yeah, it would take 1 damage. So someone mark the. Yeah, you have your forward shields. This probably would have been on your pass, so it would have been probably on your side. No. Hey, stop moving it for a sec. You don't know what you're doing, but you're clicking things. Okay. It has a hull trauma of 17. So you take 1 damage out of your 17. So you notice a nick, maybe the ship like rumbles a little bit as like the fire kind of collectively managed to come through for a nick of damage. You on the front panel, Mason sees maybe like a blink of red along part of the side hull in his his HUD display of kind of the ship status. Nothing like immediately alarming, but it's still damaged. The ship has in fact suffered something, right? Let's see another piloting. See another piloting. See how I think it's been two purple the whole time, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's been two purple. That was where you had the triumph. No issues. Get an get an advantage. You can either clear a stress, or if you want some sort of like minor beneficial effect, you can. You could. No. You can give the next person a blue die. Okay. You come in, sweep around the water side, come back in towards the ground. You get that corkscrew turn on the ship, and yeah, let's see the gunnery. Let's see Nar. Unless Nard. Yes, sir, with a blue. Yep, true. Ooh. Yeah, the shots go. Maybe it's there's only like maybe like a couple of the vehicles left out of the ones that you've like forced off, blown up, and whatnot. So like maybe it was just hard to get through and get the ones that are left, especially because maybe like one of them is still like smoldering. There's like a bunch of fiery smoke going up into the air, and it just made it hard to peg the shots down. You end up just hitting ground instead, and maybe again you're kind of smashing through fences and maybe like one of those like side road electrical boxes type of thing instead. And we see the flash of sparks and electricity and stuff go off from like the transformer type things. But you did get two advantage. You could spend it for something that I wasn't forcing spending that. You could if you want something more specific to come from the electrical boxes, we can do that. I was just adding that for flavor. Okay, sure. Hell, even for a turn if you want, because of the electrical boxes, maybe it has like a minor electromagnetic effect that kind of screws with the targeting of their turrets and whatnot on the vehicles. Would be how it could, yeah, make it not so that they don't shoot them. Yeah. I'll give a roll to see how well they hold their, especially without a leader. Let's see how they do. They can actually kind of keep their cool. Not the greatest, but they do have an ability. Well, nope. Screw their ability. So a bunch of them end up actually probably even more so. I think that but a bunch of them had already scattered. I think the last couple of these armored SUV like speeders end up just picking up and then moving down the road. Like basically like leave the scene and escape, leaving behind like the fragmented formation of the ground troops of gang members that are still here. And that at least kind of gives a lot of turn of the combat, and we'll see kind of how the rest of it pans out after the break. We're going to take ourselves a 10-minute, get up and stretch our legs, and we'll be back with the second half of Star Wars Ashes episode 19. Stay tuned. And we're back. Thank you all for your patience. We had our 10-minute break. It's time for the second half of episode 19, The Dark Side of the Salt. So we'll say the battle is basically concluded. You managed to probably even land the remembrance out in the front parkway or parking lot, essentially, where a lot of the gangsters had been pushing in from and had the cover fire of all the armored speeders. And with them retreating back and breaking formation, you just use that as a way to set your, again, comparatively large ship considering the environment down there. Lizik had managed to join in near the end and probably helped Kato peg down a couple of those in the entrance pathway and bring a couple of their numbers down. Hood never really actually didn't really harm anyone. He was mostly deflecting shots with his weird laser sword. So it ended up being mostly the people that he was with, and then Kato and Lizik that ended up doing any actual killing of the gangsters. So, anything we want, like, I'm assuming Mason and Nard come out to check in on what had happened, or is there anything in between that we want to cover? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, you land in the parking lot basically. So basically, just more or less right out the entranceway to this dock warehouse. Yeah. You can find Zeke and Kato near Hood. And yeah, Hood, sure enough, he brings the I guess the actual hood part of Hood of his cloak, the hood part of Hood, um, pushes it back. His laser sword, goes into the hilt, and he clips it to his belt. And he turns to Kato before, as Mason's kind of still approaching a little bit in the distance, and he bows his head and he goes, "Your timing couldn't have been quite better. I commend you on your prudence." We are very rapidly losing safe positions that I can house all the orphans and all of our allies. In light of recent events, the huts are, and all the peripheral people associated with the huts are become excruciatingly aggressive these days. I believe something happened on the other side of hut space, I heard. Sorry to hear that. Yes. It does seem like that is what is about to happen. Kind of pauses, and I knew things were going to be unstable, but I was maintaining optimism that things wouldn't deteriorate in the manner that they have. I'm feeling increasingly concerned that there's another very ambitious influence behind this matter. And now Mason probably makes it up to the rest of the group. Yes. We should go talk. After who nod. So leads you along the side of the area, and then gradually up towards the stairwell, and he calls out to the children, and kind of assures them that things have been dealt with for now, um, but that ultimately they're going to have to find another spot now. Obviously, they've been found out in this what is implied as a hiding spot, and they're all like huddled. There's like a good few dozen of teenagers, kids, and some like young adult. Like they were helping him with the gunfight, like the ones that were like they have like some blaster pistols and stuff. Um, they seem relatively more grittier, mature type of people. Maybe by the way their clothing looks and stuff, they have us like an air of like being like gangsters themselves or something. Like they got that kind of slouched and like tattered, slanted, clothing, tattoos, and stuff like that on their bodies. But he seems assured, he doesn't pay them much mind. Like there don't seem to be any particular hostility or concern too much. But yeah, they're just packed inside that like supervisor office of the warehouse as he leads you kind of in the other direction instead, and kind of just takes a more of a like a scenic route along this elevated area of the warehouse. Uh, well, there's you, Mr. Huam, I'm sure are well aware I'm not quite like yourself. Ah, so you have heard of those words. Hmm. Well, you're still in one piece, so I suppose that's at least some kind of positive. Are you otherwise okay? Do you mention the artifact? Is that part of all of that? I mean, he kind of knows about it, but like, do you go into detail about what was in there and how that was the catalyst to a lot of it? Like, do you connect those dots? Or do you, in how you relay the information to them? Like, do you would say, oh, Lazik happened to go astray in Narhaska, or you say she went after the artifact? Like where, how detailed? Okay, sure. Yeah, when you first mentioned Skazia, he, his eyebrows kind of arch up, you know. Yeah, I can't do it. I'm not the Rock. Um, yeah, I don't have that talent. No, that's not too bad. He did all right. Yeah. So yeah, his eyebrow arches up, and he takes a long, deep breath, and he goes, hmm. So now you survived an altercation. That's a positive. But her motives are, yes, she is the one I fear is taking advantage of this situation between the Hutts and the Imperials. And I fear you may have fell into playing a significant role in contributing to her gains, Mr. Huam. As he tosses a glance to his side to the Sikh, who's like a step behind him, basically. It's possible. It's only about willingness. You can't teach those that are have other things in mind. And like Lasik is like she's paying very close attention to this conversation as she's like a step behind. And her eyes are just like focused on Hood. And he like turns to her for a moment and he goes, "You're very conflicted, aren't you?" And she's just straight face, straight poker face, which is surprising for Lasik for considering how animated she is. Just stares at him and she goes, "Why did the Sith hate the Jedi?" And Hood just there's just that awkward moment of silence from him, sort of. He takes and he goes, "Long story indeed, Mr. Spectre. Um, see, it's a very drastic difference of view on just about everything, actually. You see, life comes with certain limitations that are either social or physical, and where the Jedi's philosophy is to work within those confines in a form of unity for the productivity and betterment of everybody. The Sith want to be the ones in control of the rhythm. They want to be the ones that dictate what happens and to who and how. And they care little for having to get along with what is essentially their brothers and sisters, even across different races and species and everything. All of us in this galaxy is essentially just origins of the same thing in the beginning. It sounds like a lot of things. The Sith don't accept nature. No, I guess that's not quite true. It's it's complicated. But ultimately they two sides see a very different way of how things should be. And they can't simply talk the matter out. Perhaps they did eons ago, but now they choose to force their way to make sure that their way is the way. For the last 1,000 years, the Jedi had their way. They were the go-to source for the matter for in the Republic for a substantial amount of time. But inevitably, the Sith's way overturned that. Little. No, he was as pretty much a staple as far as emperors are in the histories of many races. And now, in the light of his destruction and without a leading philosophy of Jedi or Sith, it is now up to everybody in between to decide how things are going to be. And the choice seems to be war. A war that the Republic isn't prepared to fight in their infancy. A war that the Empire is not quite prepared to fight in their significant losses, battle after battle. But this slumbering beast may be prepared to fight. And after Haska, it is awake. Uh, Difficult question to answer. For us, we have to keep finding places where we can lay low and hide. Though our numbers are consistently growing as more people like Mason and Lizzie are coming to us for shelter, it's becoming more difficult to find the place that they can not be found in harm's way. The Hutts are either buying gangs or paramilitary, or the gangs in corporations themselves are taking it upon it to hunt after us, to present us all as trophies to the huts. This, after the church fell, this is our fifth hiding spot in only about a couple weeks. I certainly wouldn't deny it, but your quality of living may be not very high. Mm, that's fair, although the constant barrage of aggressors certainly will test that. But if you want to stay, it may be very beneficial. It may give us time to allow you to accept more of who you are if that is the choice you want to make. Very well. That's very well said. Um, a little bit. The We need food, but it don't need so much that it's difficult to carry to our next location. There's a min max, if you will understand. Oh, yes, actually, I'm sure everyone would enjoy something freshly cooked. Haven't had that in a number of days. Mr. Huam, depending on which your plans are going forward, I don't expect things to get any more convenient in this region of space. And if you have no interest in war or aid to anybody, then you're probably better off getting very far away from this part of the galaxy. There's not going to be any happy endings around here anytime soon. The Hutts are going to be very unkind. Lizzie is at a very interesting crossroads, Mr. Huang. And as strange as this may sound, her path becomes a lot darker if she stays here with the conflicts that we are going to be in to have to survive. You see, when it comes to people like Skazia, traumatic things can go a long way to influence you to doing a lot of terrible things. And I don't have the breadth to teach both Mason and keep her from succumbing to that. And he puts his hand on your shoulder and he goes, but I have a lot of faith that you can do that. Do you have a lot of friends that are parents? Well, then this may be a little hard to relate to, but as surprising as it may seem, a child with no parents end up turning worse than ones with bad parents. I I I think he just like takes his hand off your shoulder and just like leaves you in like shock and awe for a moment on the walkway as he goes back over and he's like, "Children, everybody, there's some food being prepared in the starship out front. You can all line up near the entrance, and I'm sure it'll be done in no time at all." And everyone kind of gets up and files down the staircase. I'd be a little surprised. She could have, but she got what she wanted. I think if she's going to visit anyone next, it's not going to be you or the Sikh. You see a genuine bit of surprise, just kind of gives a very noticeable bow of his head and part of his upper body, basically, with it. And then he follows down the stairway with the rest of the orphans and allies of his to wait for food. For what? Oh, yeah, four purple discipline. Yeah, good luck with that. Yep. I couple dozen under the age of 16, and then probably a dozen, and yeah, just over a dozen above the age of 16. For planetary relocation, sure. Actually, a short space jump, maybe. Um, at the moment, I didn't really have anything prepared. I was hoping this warehouse was going to last a few days longer than it did. Not quite. That's very possible. Almost planetary. Yes, that being on the opposite coast may have some benefits. May stall a little bit longer to find something potentially more secure. Maybe something underground. Any aid would be greatly appreciated. We don't see allies of your nature very often. They got it. Um, you could, if you did roll, I think you can find a safe location. I think the roll would be either a little bit on the extra of how safe slash any extra amenities they might get for it. Like I think we would just it'd be more like a fortune roll in blades than it would be. I don't think there'll be like a if you succeed, it's how much you succeed. If you want to do a roll like that instead, streetwise, be streetwise. Yeah, I mean we'll still throw some difficulty to create the chance. It'll be just like a couple purple average. Does your Noah guy? Yeah, two. Does your Noah guy or any stuff fit in here? Because you're kind of finding slash buying a place or using connections. Do you have anything for that? Oh yeah. Okay. Um. Oh, that's negotiation. Technically, yeah, I was just looking to see if there's anything. Well, technically, your intense focus still works, but nothing else. Yeah. All right. So the rarity, um, yeah, I guess it makes it easy. I guess it turns it into a one purple roll. So you get the benefit of what Nard provides, and then your stuff on top of it, and then we'll let Kato do the roll. 3 successes and an advantage. So yeah, you find a pretty decent spot. Maybe the actually I don't know if that would be the advantage. Actually, the advantage is probably like you don't bring any attention on yourself. You keep it very clean and below the radar. And yeah, you find them a decent spot. Maybe like a basement or like a parking level of like an office building or something that's been abandoned. So there's like some a lot of them while parking garages below level or below ground level. So maybe uh it might be kind of stretching. That may be more of a triumph thing or a lot of advantage. Yeah. So yeah, probably something like that, like a parking garage of an office building that's like basement level one, but maybe with reasonable access to the first floor where you can kind of sneak in and use bathrooms and maybe some other like facilities and stuff for there for amenities that they can have. But they basically have like a nice wide open car park essentially that they can modify and customize and have a lot of space to set up their stuff that isn't overly exposed or anything like that. So I think it's probably something like that that you manage to find and they can set up their stuff there. It's true. Yeah. All four arms just bear hugged around you. Yeah. I was just resting up for now for the new situation I'm in. And then as Nard passes, I think Mason you shift your attention to the side and there's Lysique standing there with her hands on her hips and she goes, "No, not allowed to leave." You're the one that was really nice to me. Well, someone's got to do something stupid. I don't want to have to fit in your pilot chair, fill the shoe or fill the seat that you did. I only did it temporarily. It wasn't supposed to become a full-time gig. Oh God. Yeah, her face kind of lights up a little bit, and she's just like, "Oh, I know what I'm gonna call it. The Spectre." It's like five something. You don't have to kneel down. Yeah, you have a long hush. She doesn't let go of you for a little bit, and you can hear her kind of like the soft little whimper of her crying and whatnot into your shoulder. That's gonna happen a lot, just so you know. I'm gonna miss you. Mm, yeah, he. Cause I imagine like the case of his various liquor is around. She grabs a bottle, but not with her hand, and then walks back to the ship, uncorking it and slugging back a bunch of it. Now, you guys were concerned about the gray Jedi. You forgot about the drunk Jedi. Anyways, yeah, you guys wrap up your stuff here. The Remembrance takes a slow, solemn lift off from the ground, the Spectre, and begins its ascent uh, up into the clouds and into the upper atmosphere, and then clear of space, leaving behind a bunch of people on the ground looking up, waving, a bunch of kids and teenagers. Yeah. You guys reunite with the Poodoo, somehow figure out who's pilot of that ship, and then I assume without further ado, we see the Spectre and the Poodoo pull themselves into hyperspace. Dun, 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 dun. Oh yeah, good luck telling her she can't do something. Yeah, okay. All right. No, we will end it there early. We just had a very heartfelt moment. There's no point in dragging on for 12 minutes of maintenance RP, basically, we'll call it. So thank you all for joining us. Very, very sad episode, or it was an episode that was a roller coaster. Unfortunately, Fantastic Fiend won't be able to continue with us, at least for now. Maybe there'll be a day when he can come back, depending on what the future brings. But that's why Mason has had to sign off, and we did it the pretty much the best way we could. Remember to follow him at the Fantastic Fiend on Twitch and YouTube's. He does still as much as he can for stream variety style, and does actual his own videos compared to me that just uploads raw VODs of these episodes. And we'll be back next week, just the two of the players. We're going to try and wrap up something good, or at least set the stakes for season one's end. And then the plan going forward is to find some new friendly faces and have a fresh season two. So stay tuned on that. But there'll probably be a gap between one and two as we kind of reconfigure everything. But yeah, from all of us here at Star Wars Ashes, have a great night. See you next week.